My name is Marcus Calabrese. I'm a candidate for Norfolk City Council, and just want to give you more of a bio about myself and then leave a little bit more time for questions. Over the last 5 years, I've represented the public on issues such as community development, hunger, unemployment, and small businesses. So this campaign and my seeking this political office is not my first attempt at representing people. I've already voted on issues that have made a difference in the lives of people every day for the last few years. I grew up overseas prior to coming here. I grew up in Japan and Saudi Arabia. My dad is prior Air Force. And I finished high school over in Portsmouth, went to Virginia Wesleyan College, and have pretty much been in Norfolk ever since. And with everything that I've done, literally, I've represented everyone from the many little itty-bitty kids to million-dollar businesses. And I've represented everyone with the same passion, the same tenacity, and some people call it being persistent, some people call it being aggressive, some people call it being a nuisance. I've been a nuisance for so many people, and I'm fine with that. I'm fine with that reputation, because sometimes that's what it takes to get things done. You know, if you look at the track record that we've seen from City Council, and if you look at politics in general, now I'll be honest, if you take a look at my literature piece, you'll see on the back that I've been working with Democrats and Republicans for as long as I possibly could. And I think if you look at the demographics of our super ward, even politically speaking, you look at the fact that we do cover a good portion of the 2nd Congressional District and a portion of the 3rd. In the 3rd Congressional District, we have Congressman Bobby Scott, who may, for all intents and purposes, be there until Jesus comes. And in the 2nd Congressional District, you have Congressman Scott Ridgel, which, whether he's there or not, you will always have the 2nd Congressional District that covers the world's largest naval base. So you do need somebody in this race who has nonpartisan leanings. Now, when it comes to the realistic part, well, Marcus, who have you supported? And again, if you take a look at the back, you'll see I've worked with everyone from Dick Gephardt when he was the Democratic leader and he ran for president back in 2004. I believe he didn't get that far, but he ran. I also worked with Attorney General Bob McDonnell when he ran for governor. I've worked with shop steward from a union, Patricia Edmondson. I worked with Brent McKenzie, who's a Democrat. They're both Democrats. And I've worked with Republicans and Democrats for a while now. So I'm proud of that bipartisan effort, and I think that that is one thing that it takes, and not just necessarily your political views, but it takes somebody with those relationships. If you look at my track record in the community, I've been visiting civic leagues, I've been visiting business groups, and I've been visiting all these areas for a long time, because it's something that I've cared about, and even that's before this became political. But one thing that I think we need, if I have to sum it up in just a few words, I think we need a working councilman. Norfolk needs a working councilman. We don't need a Democrat, we don't need a Republican, we don't need a Libertarian. We need somebody who's going to take the time and work as hard for the city as we do during campaign season. We need to take that same level of effort, that same time, that same energy, and do it after campaign season. I'm not interested in coming back to civic leagues all the time to be a guest speaker or to be a ceremonial speaker. You need somebody who's going to sit down with you and say, you know what? 5 o'clock, even though I know you guys meet second Tuesday, Wednesday, let's sit down and talk about some things. I don't want to be the guest speaker. I don't want to be on the agenda. I need to sit in and I need to listen. Now, when I first announced back in November, somebody said, well, that's great, but you can't build a campaign on listening. No, but you can build a city on listening. And if you look at the types of things that have been going on, a lot of that has happened because City Council has become tone deaf. You look at something as simple as Ward's Corner. Now, I know that that's private property. Wonderful. I'm glad it's private property. Private enterprise is great. It has its place. But if you also look at the national economy and even our local economy right here in Norfolk, the problem that you have, even in the private economy, the private sector, private property, all of that, when you have you know who spends money on these private properties? Public citizens, taxpayers, AKA voters. Now, when they start feeling left out of the process, then all of a sudden, things start to change. And if you look at how we're making decisions on Ward's Corner with the small businesses, I understand that the PREs have talked to them. I appreciate that. My thing is, I would like to see a small business commission in Norfolk who says, okay, well, we understand that the PREs are doing this in Ward's Corner. That's fantastic. We're going to have a 6th grocery store. Who's excited about that? All right. Because we have 3 food lines. We still have Kroger and Farm Fresh. And so, well, Farm Fresh is going to put a whole lot of money. They're going to put a whole lot more money into it. Fantastic. If after all these years of grocery stores, if the best that we can come up with is another one, I think that falls on the reality that if you look at our super ward, look at all the business groups based here, the Chamber of Commerce, Ocean View Business Association. Wars Corner Business Association was still around until recently. Franklin Rose Business Outreach, which I sat on the board of directors for, and represented nearly 100 small businesses and not-for-profits. Hispanic Chamber of Commerce, the National Association of Women Business Owners. Out of all these organizations, nobody has come up with any, or have the conversation even been held? Has there been no idea, no solution developed to say, well, let's change the approach. How about some tax incentives for these businesses at Ward's Corner? Let's see if we can help them relocate within the city. Ron Time might have appreciated that before they signed a lease to go to Virginia Beach. Another business might have appreciated that. From what I hear, it's going to cost them over $150,000 to, just to refrigerate everything so it doesn't spoil. AJ Gators might have liked that. Now I've heard AJ Gators is coming back. I've heard they're leaving. In either case, AJ Gators has been there for less than 2 years. I know they were across the street, but they renovated a new property. They took down the warehouse, they didn't take it down, but they renovated the warehouse, and they renovated that property. They've only been in that property for less than 2 years. Now all of a sudden, we want to say, look, in the name of economic development, despite the fact that the business has been doing business here over the last 10 years, let's just hope for the best. I don't think that that's the best approach. And you see that same mentality enacted down at Waterside. We have, from what I saw in the paper, I believe it said 40% of Waterside has small businesses. So you mean to tell me, in a down economy, we're talking about tearing down a building that has 40% occupation, and these small businesses, despite a hurting economy, and despite a lack of traffic flow, have been able to keep their businesses going? And these businesses have not been brought into the discussion on Waterside. Not unless you count the 300 people they had at a press conference when they talked about the proposals, which they were not a part of. Somehow, we're able to talk about a proposal that costs $200 million, I believe $76 million coming from taxpayers. I believe that's what they said, $76 million. Well, the other proposal's free. How many of you would rather pay $76 million of your own money compared to something that's free? Despite the fact, again, none of those small business organizations have been brought into that conversation. As the only candidate, I've actually been attacked on this. Well, you're not the only candidate who's been, yes, no, but I am the only candidate who has worked in Norfolk public schools. I grew up in Saudi Arabia, I grew up in Japan. Doesn't make me Secretary of State. We're talking about Norfolk schools. This is not always that. You need to have somebody who's had hands-on experiences to deal with the hard decisions. You cannot have a candidate who has not been through these schools, who has not looked a student in the eye in Norfolk, and say, I have your best interest at heart. It's not something that you can relate to. I would not apply my experience in working with children in Saudi Arabia here because it's a whole different concept. And I worked in schools in Virginia Beach too, but it's different, and I realize that. When it comes to an elected school board issue, I'm the only candidate who's been publicly, to my knowledge, endorsed by elected school board members. Brett McKenzie, a teacher here in Norfolk and a school board member of Virginia Beach, gets to see both perspectives. Patricia Evanson, another former school board member of Virginia Beach, who used to counsel children in Norfolk. And you know as well as I know that whatever happens at home, you end up seeing some of the effects at school. So two people who have seen these children and worked with them in a hands-on capacity have said, you know what, if we're going to have an elected school board, you need somebody who can at least have access to the people, regardless of partisan differences, regardless of political views, who can actually put their hands on the situation and work with it. And that's why I'm running. When it comes down to two issues, our economy and our education, again, yes, I am the only candidate who's worked in Norfolk Public Schools on a compensation basis and as a volunteer. I'm the only candidate who sat on the board of directors of a Norfolk-based business chamber, and that's important. And if I am wrong, if any of my opponents feel like that I left something out or if I left them out of the equation, then definitely please let me know. I am more than open to apologize. I know we don't have too many councilmen who do that. But I will say, I mean, I'm not going to mention any names. The councilman's not here. It's not a councilman Wynn, who I have actually come to like. I like Councilman Wynn. I really do. I really do. And I'll be honest. I know the question was already asked. I'll answer it up front. What about the three people in the race? That might be why I jumped in November. Because to the councilman's credit, I think it is rude to the councilman. I think it's rude to the voters to say, 2 months left, I'm in. You can't possibly make the rounds and listen to people. It's impossible. It's impossible. It's impossible to say, well, I'm going to unseat an incumbent. in 2 months to start taking control. It doesn't make any sense, and it's a disappointment to the people, and it's not fair. So, I know that I will be attacked over some things. I'm excited about it. I've already been attacked over some things, and I will tell you, it's all true. Go to marcuscalabrese.blogspot.com. I work for Bob McDonald. I'm not happy with everything he's done. I told him to his face, we're doing great. I'm not happy about some of the other candidates that I've worked for. One of them being Naomi Amarillia, John Allen in the back. I worked with him. And in that race, I still believe he was a better candidate. That was a different race. And some other things have come to light. But I'm getting a little bit ahead of myself. I would love to leave some time for questions, whether it be about specific strategies or whether it be about some of the politicians that I've worked for, whether it be just about some of my views. I would love to answer your questions.